Look, I need you to imagine something with me for a second. You're sitting in your 2019 Honda Civic. It's got 65,000 miles on it. The check engine light just came on, again. And you're thinking, you know what? I'm done with this. I'm getting a new car. So you sell it. You get a decent price. You feel good about it. You move on. Fast forward 3 years. You run the numbers just out of curiosity, and you realize that single decision, that one Saturday afternoon when you decided to sell your car, cost you somewhere between $15,000 and $40,000. Not because you got scammed, not because you made some obviously stupid mistake, but because you sold at the wrong time in a way that most people, and I mean like 90% of people, completely misunderstand. My name is Rehan, and I spend an uncomfortable amount of time thinking about how the timing of your financial decisions creates compounding consequences that most people never calculate. And if you're someone who's ever sold a car, traded one in, or is even thinking about getting rid of your current vehicle, this video is going to fundamentally change how you think about car ownership. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Here's the thing that nobody talks about. Selling your car isn't just a transaction. It's a mathematical event that triggers a cascade of financial consequences that compound over time in ways that are honestly kind of terrifying when you actually map them out. Let me show you what I mean. Let's say you buy a car for $30,000, brand new. Year one, that car loses about 20% of its value. Year two, another 15%. Year three, maybe 10%. By year five, you're looking at a car that's worth roughly $15,000. Now, here's what most people don't realize. That depreciation curve isn't linear. It's exponential at first, then it flattens out. And there's a specific window, usually between years 7 and 12, where the depreciation slows down so much that the annual cost of ownership drops to almost nothing. But we never get there. The average American owns a car for about 6 years, which means we're selling right before we hit the sweet spot. We're eating all the depreciation and none of the stability. And this is where it gets really interesting, because when you sell your car, you're not just losing the vehicle, you're resetting the entire depreciation cycle. You're going back to square one on a curve that is specifically designed to extract the maximum amount of money from you in the shortest amount of time. Let me give you the math on this, and I want you to really sit with these numbers. Person A buys a $30,000 car. It drove it for 6 years, sells it for $13,000. Loss? $17,000. Then they do it again. Another $30,000 car, 6 more years, sells for $13,000. Another $17,000 loss. Over 12 years, they've lost $34,000 to depreciation. Person B buys the same $30,000 car, drives it for 12 years straight, sells it for $6,000. Loss? $24,000. Person B saves $10,000 just by not selling, just by riding out the depreciation curve instead of resetting it. And that's the simple version. That's not even accounting for sales tax, registration fees, the time cost of shopping for a new car, the interest if you're financing. When you factor all that in, the gap gets even wider. Now, you might be thinking, okay, Rehan, but what if my car is starting to have problems? What if it's going to cost me more to maintain than it's worth? Look, this is the exact psychological trap that keeps people poor, and I don't mean that to be harsh. I mean it literally. There's a specific thought pattern here that feels logical but is mathematically devastating. Here's what happens. Your car needs a $1,200 repair. You think, I'm not putting $1,200 into this car. It's only worth $8,000. That's ridiculous. So you sell it and buy something newer for $22,000. You just spent $22,000 to avoid spending $1,200. And here's the thing, your brain doesn't code it that way. Your brain says, I bought a newer car for $22,000, not I spent an extra $20,800 because I was afraid of a $1,200 repair. But mathematically, that's exactly what happened. There was a study done by AAA, the American Automobile Association, in 2023, And they found that the average annual cost to own and operate a new vehicle is $12,182. That includes depreciation, loan interest, insurance, fuel, maintenance, all of it. But here's what most people don't realize. Of that $12,182, roughly $4,500 is depreciation, and that number drops dramatically as the car ages. For a car that's 8 years old, paid off, and well maintained, your annual cost of ownership can drop to around $5,000 or even less. You're cutting your transportation costs in half just by keeping the car longer. But we don't think this way. We think about payments. Oh, I can afford $450 a month, and we never calculate what that $450 a month actually costs us over 10, 15, 20 years. Let me show you something that honestly blew my mind when I first calculated it. Let's say instead of trading in your car every 6 years, you drove it for 12 years and you took that payment you're not making anymore, let's say $400, and you invested it in a basic index fund averaging 8% returns. After 6 years of investing that $400 a month, you'd have about $36,800, not the $28,800 you put in. $36,800 because of compound growth. After 12 years, you'd have about $92,500. After 20 years, $235,000. You could literally retire years earlier just by keeping your car longer. This isn't even an exaggeration. The decision to sell your car every few years versus driving it into the ground is, for most people, the difference between retiring at 65 and retiring at 70. But here's where this gets even more complex, because I'm not saying you should never sell your car. I'm saying most people sell at exactly the wrong time for exactly the wrong reasons. There's actually an optimal window to sell a car, and it's based on a specific calculation that almost nobody makes. You want to sell when the annual cost of maintenance exceeds the annual cost of depreciation plus financing on a replacement vehicle, not when you feel like it, not when you're annoyed by a check engine light, when the math says it makes sense. For most cars, this happens somewhere between years 10 and 15, depending on the make, model, and how well you've maintained it. Japanese cars, Honda, Toyota, Mazda, you can push this even further. There was an MIT study from 2022 that tracked total cost of ownership across vehicle lifespans, and they found that the true cost per mile sweet spot for most vehicles is between 150,000 and 200,000 miles. That's when you've spread out the initial purchase price over enough miles that your cost per mile is at its absolute minimum. But we sell our cars at around 70,000 miles. We're not even close to the efficient zone. And here's the thing, this compounds across your lifetime in ways that are honestly staggering. Let's say you're 25 years old. You're going to need transportation until you're, let's say, 75. That's 50 years. If you buy a new car every 6 years, you're buying about 8 cars in your lifetime at an average cost of, let's be conservative, $35,000 each, accounting for inflation. That's $280,000 in cars. If you buy a new car every 12 years and drive them until they're done, you're buying 4 cars, $140,000 total. You just saved $140,000 by making one simple change to your car ownership pattern. That's not even accounting for the insurance savings, the lower registration fees, the reduced financing costs. $140,000 is a house down payment in many markets. It's a kid's college education. It's financial security in retirement. And we're giving it away because we think a check engine light means we need a new car. Now, let's talk about maintenance, because this is where people really get tripped up. Rehan, older cars cost more to maintain. That's just a fact. Okay, let's examine that. Because yes, it's true that a 12-year-old car will need more maintenance than a 3-year-old car. But the question isn't whether it needs more maintenance, the question is whether that maintenance costs more than the depreciation you're avoiding by not selling. Consumer Reports did a long-term reliability study, and they found that the average annual maintenance cost for a vehicle in years 7 through 10 is about $1,200 to $1,500. For years 10 through 15, it jumps to about $2,000 to $2,500. Sounds like a lot, right? But remember, a new car is depreciating at about $4,000 to $5,000 a year in those first few years. So even if you're spending $2,500 on maintenance, you're still ahead by about $2,000 annually compared to buying new. And here's what nobody tells you. Most of that maintenance is predictable. You know when you're going to need tires. You know when you're going to need brakes. You know roughly when the transmission might need service. These aren't surprises. You can budget for them, but we treat them like crises. Your car needs $800 in brake work and you panic. Meanwhile, you're perfectly comfortable with a $450 car payment that costs you $5,400 a year every year for 6 years. It's the same psychological trap that keeps people renting instead of buying houses. The maintenance feels like a loss because it's irregular and unexpected. The payment feels manageable because it's regular and predictable. But mathematically, the payment is destroying you. Every time you sell your car, you're not just resetting the depreciation clock, you're also locking in all the hidden costs of acquisition. Sales tax. Let's say you live in a state with 7% sales tax. You buy a $30,000 car, that's $2,100 in sales tax. Just gone. You can't get that back. Registration fees. Depending on your state, this could be anywhere from $200 to $800. Documentation fees at the dealership, usually $300 to $500. If you're financing, there's often a loan origination fee, another $200 to $500. You're in for about $3,000 to $4,000 in transaction costs before you even drive the car off the lot. Now, if you keep that car for 12 years, those costs get spread out over a long period. They're annoying, but they're manageable. But if you're trading every 6 years, you're paying those costs twice as often. Over a lifetime, that's tens of thousands of dollars in pure transaction costs that provide zero value to you. And this is before we even talk about the negotiation disadvantage you're at when you have a trade-in. Dealers love trade-ins because it gives them another profit center. They can lowball you on your trade, mark up the new car, play with the financing terms, and most people have no idea how much they're actually spending because it's all bundled into one transaction. There was a study by Consumer Reports, I think this was 2021, where they sent mystery shoppers to dealerships to negotiate car deals both with and without trade-ins. The shoppers with trade-ins paid an average of $1,400 more for the same vehicle even after accounting for the trade-in value. The dealer was just able to manipulate the numbers more easily when there were more variables in play. And let's talk about financing for a second, because this is where selling your car at the wrong time can really set you back. The average car loan in the United States right now is about 68 months. 5.5 years, at an average interest rate of around 7% for new cars, 11% for used. Here's the problem. For the first half of your loan, the majority of your payment is going to interest, not principal. You're not building equity. You're just paying for the privilege of borrowing money. So if you sell your car after 3 years, you've been making payments for 36 months, but you might have only paid down $8,000 or $9,000 of a $25,000 loan. You still owe $16,000 or $17,000. Meanwhile, the car has depreciated from $30,000 to maybe $18,000. If you're lucky, you're underwater. You owe more than the car is worth. So what do people do? They roll that negative equity into the next loan. Now you're financing $33,000 to buy a $30,000 car because you're bringing $3,000 in negative equity with you. And the cycle continues. Every time you trade in before the loan is paid off, you're digging yourself deeper into debt. You're financing depreciation. You're paying interest on money you already lost. I talked to a guy once, true story, who had rolled over negative equity 3 times. He was driving a car worth $22,000 and he owed $31,000 on it. $9,000 of his loan was just old debt from previous cars that he'd traded in too early. He was paying interest on cars he didn't even own anymore. That's what selling at the wrong time looks like in its most extreme form, and it's not uncommon. Edmunds estimated that about 33% of trade-ins have negative equity. 1 in 3 people are underwater on their car loans. But here's the thing that really keeps me up at night. All of this, the depreciation, the transaction costs, the financing charges, all of this is money that could be invested instead. I mentioned earlier that investing $400 a month for 20 years at 8% returns gives you about $235,000. Let me break down what that actually means for your life. If you're 30 years old right now and you start investing $400 a month, by the time you're 50, you have $235,000. That $235,000, if you just leave it alone and let it continue compounding at 8% for another 15 years until you're 65, becomes $750,000. $750,000 from just keeping your car longer and investing the difference. That's not a comfortable retirement. That's a secure retirement. That's the difference between worrying about money in your 70s and not worrying about money in your 70s. And we're giving it up because we want a car with Apple CarPlay. I'm not even exaggerating. The #1 reason people cited for trading in their car in a 2023 survey by Cars.com was wanted newer technology, not because their car was unreliable, not because it was unsafe, because they wanted a bigger screen. We're sacrificing our financial futures for Bluetooth connectivity. Now, I know what you're thinking. Rehan, you're being too harsh. A new car gives me peace of mind. I know it's not going to break down. That has value. Okay, let's talk about that. First of all, the reliability gap between new cars and well-maintained older cars is way smaller than you think. A 2019 study by Consumer Reports found that properly maintained vehicles from reliable brands have less than a 5% difference in breakdown rates between 3 years old and 10 years old. Less than 5%. You're paying $15,000 to $20,000 in extra depreciation for a 5% reduction in breakdown probability. And here's the other thing. Even new cars break down. There's no such thing as a car that will never have a problem. I've seen brand new cars with transmission issues, electrical problems, engine defects. The warranty covers it, sure, but you're still dealing with the inconvenience. And let's be honest about what peace of mind really means. It means you're paying a premium to avoid dealing with uncertainty. You're paying to not have to think about your car. But that's not peace of mind, that's avoidance, and avoidance is expensive. Real peace of mind comes from having $50,000 in your retirement account that wouldn't be there if you'd bought a new car. Real peace of mind comes from knowing that if you lose your job, you don't have a $450 car payment hanging over your head. Peace of mind isn't a new car. Peace of mind is financial security, and financial security comes from making smart decisions about depreciation curves and opportunity costs, not by driving something with a warranty. So what's the actual right answer here? When should you sell your car? Here's the framework I use, and I want you to really think through this because this is the math that actually matters. You should consider selling your car when 1. The annual maintenance costs exceed $3,000 to $4,000 per year consistently. Not one big repair, consistently high costs year after year. 2. A major component fails that costs more than 50% of the car's current value to replace. Like if your transmission goes out and it costs $4,000 to fix a car that's worth $7,000, okay, maybe it's time. 3. Safety becomes a legitimate concern. If your car is genuinely unsafe, structural rust, failing brakes that can't be repaired, airbag recalls that can't be fixed, then yes, sell it. But here's the key. You should be planning for this. You should have a car replacement fund that you're contributing to every single month so that when the time comes, you can buy your next car in cash and avoid all the financing costs we talked about. Here's what this looks like practically. Let's say you buy a reliable car, Honda Accord, Toyota Camry, Mazda 6, something like that, for $25,000. You drive it for 12 years. You budget $2,000 a year for maintenance, which is high, but let's be conservative. Your total cost of ownership over 12 years is $25,000 purchase price plus $24,000 in maintenance, $49,000 total. Divided by 12 years, that's about $4,083 per year or $340 per month. Now, during those 12 years, you're also saving money in a car replacement fund. You save $200 a month for 12 years. At the end, you have about $32,000 saved, accounting for modest investment returns. You sell your 12-year-old car for, let's say, $4,000. You now have $36,000 in cash to buy your next car. You buy another reliable car for $25,000. You pocket the extra $11,000 or roll it into your investment accounts. And you do this for the rest of your life. This is how you break the cycle. You stop financing depreciation. You stop resetting the curve every 6 years. You drive reliable cars for their full useful life, and you save the difference. This is really the core of what I want you to understand. This isn't really about cars. This is about how you think about money. Selling your car at the wrong time is just a symptom of a larger problem, which is that most people make financial decisions based on emotion, not math. Based on how they feel, not what's actually true. You feel like you deserve a new car. You feel like your car is getting old. You feel like you don't want to deal with maintenance. And those feelings cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars over your lifetime. The shift that has to happen is that you have to start making decisions based on the numbers, not the feelings. You have to get comfortable with driving a car that's not the newest, not the shiniest, not the most impressive thing in the parking lot. Because here's the truth. Nobody cares what you drive. Nobody is impressed by your car payment. You know what's impressive? Having money, having options, having the freedom to retire early, to take a year off and travel, to help your kids with college, to not have to stress about money when you're 70 years old. That's what's impressive, and you get there by making boring, smart decisions over and over again for decades. Keeping your car longer is one of those decisions. Here's what I want you to do, and I'm being serious. Actually do this. Don't just nod along and then go trade in your car next month. Step 1. Calculate your current cost of ownership. Add up your car payment, insurance, maintenance, fuel, everything. Divide it by 12. That's your monthly cost. Write it down. Step 2. Calculate what your cost would be if you paid off your car and drove it for 5 more years. Estimate maintenance conservatively. Write that down. Step 3. Look at the difference. That's the money you're leaving on the table every month by not keeping your car longer. Step 4, set up a separate savings account called your car replacement fund. Set up an automatic transfer of at least $150 a month into that account. Every month, no excuses. Step 5, commit to driving your current car until it hits at least 150,000 miles or 12 years old, whichever comes first, unless it meets one of those 3 criteria I mentioned earlier: consistent high maintenance costs, catastrophic failure, or safety issues. That's it. That's the plan. It's not sexy, it's not exciting, you're not going to feel like you're making progress because your car is going to look the same tomorrow as it does today. But in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, you're going to have wealth that your peers don't have. You're going to have options they don't have. You're going to have security they don't have. And it's going to come from this one decision: keeping your car longer. Look, I get it. This is hard. We live in a culture that tells us we need new things, that our worth is tied to what we drive, that keeping an older car is somehow failing. But that's not true. Keeping an older car is winning. It's winning at a game that most people don't even realize they're playing. Every month you keep your paid-off car instead of buying a new one, you're winning. Every dollar you invest instead of sending to a dealership, you're winning. Every year you add to your car's lifespan, you're extending your timeline to financial independence. This is how wealth is built, not through big dramatic moves, but through small, consistent, boring decisions that compound over time. Selling your car at the wrong time sets you back years, but keeping it for the right amount of time pushes you forward years. The choice is yours. If this video helped you see car ownership differently, hit that like button and subscribe for more content on how to think about money in ways that actually build wealth. Drop a comment and let me know, how long are you planning to keep your current car? I'll see you in the next one.